What is up, whiners, diners, and game designers? See, I zagged on you there a little bit. Thanks for sitting down at the table with me this week. I hope that you find as much enjoyment in a large man holding a very small mic as I do. Sorry for the lighting situation. I sat down to start this video and found out that both of my lights have burnt out. So a remedy is on the way. But for now, we're just going to have to deal with me being kind of cloaked in ominous shadow. But yeah, before we get into what this video is about, which is something really exciting for me, which is really what matters, is that it's about me, is something that actually kind of sucks a little bit. I posted about this on my Instagram. If you've been following the channel for a while, you know that I have two lovely, sweet, beautiful, incredibly stupid pugs. I'll post pictures of them here and here. There's Link, the older boy, and Frank, the troublemaker of the bunch. And without getting too far into it, if you can see behind me, actually, you can probably see that homie's wearing a cone on his head. Frank, you know, he's a bit of a curmudgeon. He got into a fist fight with a cactus and he lost. And part of that loss was the use of his left eye. Homie took a big spike to the eye. In any case, if you have a pet, I'm sure you know and understand that veterinary costs are not insubstantial. They cost a lot of American dollars is the thing. And if it's one thing I've learned through this whole experience, or one thing that's been cemented in my head, I mean, I already knew it intuitively, but it's that veterinary workers are heroes. And so I'm not besmirching them the cost for their services. They've been amazing. And I've interacted with so many helpful, just great people through this. But unfortunately, I need a little bit of help. I posted about it on my Instagram. I'm not going to belabor with details, but the point is the surgery is about $3,000. The medical care up to the surgery was close to $2,000. And like a lot of people right now, I am not super solvent, due to gestures generally. So yeah, if you haven't seen the GoFundMe already and you love pugs or you like me or you just like giving people large sums of money, I mean, hit it up, dude. But please don't feel obligated. Please don't donate unless it's something you can comfortably do. I would never ask this unless it was a bit of a desperate situation, which it is. And, you know, fuck my pride. I just want the little dude's eye to be fixed, which is to say taken out of his silly little skull. So that's that. With that bit out of the way, which I will time code in case people just want to skip to the meat of the video, let's talk about something fun. Let's talk about game design. I have been playing tabletop games for close to a decade now. I think I started in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons back in 2015, the summer of 2015. When my friend Andrew introduced me to it, and had to explain to me about 7 times that it wasn't a video game and it wasn't a board game. It was like make pretend with rules. I didn't get that. But then I did, and it's sort of taken a hold of me and never let go. One kind of subset of TTRPGs that I really love as a GM myself now is world building. It's one of my favorite things to do. I love doing it just for the sake of it. I especially love doing it for campaigns that I run, especially with the players that I play in that campaign with. I find that it builds a lot of investment in the campaign as characters, you know, outside of just their own individual arcs. You know, if a character understands the world that they operate in, they have a lot more investment in it. It's all around, it's great. And some time ago, I posted a video about my favorite world building games. I made a video summarizing the gameplay and the benefits of 2 games. One is called The Ground Itself, which is designed by Everest Pipkin, and the other is called The Quiet Year, which was designed by Avery Alder. Both are fantastic games I still play to this day. But one thing that they really did was inspire me to try to design my own games. And that's what this video is about. I have been on a little bit of a tear recently, hacking games, designing games from scratch. And it's something that I'm really, really excited about and really excited to have in a kind of a place where I feel comfortable sharing it with people, which is something that I haven't really felt for a while. So let's just talk about some of the stuff that I've tossed together. The first and most complete game that I feel really, really fantastic about is a game that fits into a category that I feel like is a little underrepresented in the tabletop genre. There's a lot of games for 3 to 5 players. There's a lot of games for solo players, like journaling RPGs. I have a video where I do a little bit of that. But there are not a lot of 2-player TTRPGs, at least that I have found. Certainly not a lot of prominent ones, and not a lot of ones that have, told the kinds of stories that I want to tell or approach things the way that I want to approach things. And so I decided, fuck it, we'll do it live, and I built my own. And that game is called Stealing Time. Stealing Time is, at its core, a dice stacking game. You can see here I have this dice tray with a bunch of chunky D6s. We love that dice ASMR. In a game of Stealing Time, there's a lot that is very general because I want it to be widely adaptable to a variety of settings and flavors. But the loose truth that I think is going to take every game from its starting point is that you're 2 people involved in some sort of ongoing war that has affected your life in a major way, and you're trying to open yourself up and kind of forge connections. But the core loop of the game revolves around playing cards, which I have here, and stacking dice. And the way that works is at the beginning of the game, both players will draw 6 cards into their hand, and basically both players take turns framing scenes. So if you're what I call the framer, you would say to the person you're playing with, we're on patrol and it's a cloudy day and both of us are in shit moods, and this is where the scene starts. And then we just role play a little bit. We just go from there. It might be a little loose if you haven't done the sort of like improvisational, just jumping into role play. But there's a little bit of setup that I'm not going to belabor that should hopefully help you kind of guide character decisions and loose personality things, just to give you enough to get started. But once you get started, you play the scene for as long as it feels interesting for you. And then if you're the framer, you're going to look at the cards in your hand and you're going to choose one of them to play. And the reason that this is relevant is the suit that you play and the rank of that suit has huge relevance for what the sort of core loop of the game is. And that is, every scene ends with you asking a question to the person that you're with. And the suit determines what kind of question you ask. If it's a heart, for example, it's an emotional question. What am I to you? Am I just a connection or a distraction? Do you feel like you can still love after the war? That kind of thing. If it's a diamond suit, it's related to fame, pride, material problems. Maybe we're famous war heroes who get recognized, and we have to deal with being swarmed by people when we're both kind of reliving traumatic events. Maybe we are 2 people living just amongst a war, and the question that I'm asking is, can we pay the bills this month? Right? That's a diamonds question. A club's question is a physical question. Something like, do you remember the first person you killed? How did you get this scar? Is my body a 10 out of 10 to you? Would you hit it? Would you quit it? Would you forget it? That kind of stuff. If, believe it or not, that's not written into the rule book as an example question, but listen, you can ask any question you want as long as it fits the category and both players consent to it. And then finally, spades. Spades are family, duty, obligation, labor, that kind of thing. So like, does your family still look at you the same way? Do you have a job to go back to after the war? That could also kind of be a diamonds question. But again, all that's important is that you and the player that you're playing with consent and agree that it meets the criteria, right? This isn't 5th edition D&D. We're not talking about ranges. We're just talking about loose interpretational stuff. So that's suits. Why does rank matter? The rank of a card plays 2 important roles. One of which is that I feel like it's a good guideline for like how heavy of a question you might want to ask, though you don't have to play it that way necessarily. There's nothing in the rules that says that. It's just a fun extra thing you can do. But the extra rub is that the card that you play, the rank of the card that you play, has to be matched or beat, met or bet by the person you're playing with if they want to open up and tell you the complete truth. This is a game about trying to be emotionally vulnerable in a situation where that's not easy, about trying to forge connections in an environment where you might be really reticent to do so. And so the mechanic built into the game is that some questions are going to be too hard to answer. You might just not have the tools to be that vulnerable with somebody right away, right? And so that's the mechanic of the card not being able to be met, right? So if I play like an ace of hearts, right? That's the highest rank. Aces are high in the game. It's the highest rank. So if my partner that I'm playing with cannot play an ace, then they have to hold something back. They don't have to tell like an outright lie, right? Instead of going into like full detail about the first person I killed, it might just be like, it was a bad situation. I think about it every night. Let's not talk about it right now, right? That's holding back. And so why that's relevant is that once that question is posed, before the responder, the other person who's not framing the scene, plays a card, we roll 2d3, d6, which you can have and then round up if you want to, or round down. I can't remember, but the book knows. Past Dan knew, and he'll tell you all about it. We both roll those dice and we look. Let's say I roll a 3 and a 1 respectively. If my responder is able to open up to me, they can choose the lower value. If they can't or won't, because sometimes you just don't want to, right? Sometimes it makes character sense not to, or just feels right for a scene, right? You don't have to play a card that matches if you can. If they can't or won't, you have to choose the higher value. And the reason that that's relevant is that's how many dice we are stacking up. We stack 1. So in this case, let's say they held back, right? We stack 1, 2, 3 dice up, and that's just going to stay there. We frame another scene. Let's say again, we couldn't tell the truth. We stack 1, 2, 3. And what's interesting is that if 2 responders hold back consecutively, so if I hold back in a scene and my partner holds back in a scene, we stack another die. Uh-oh, the whole dang thing just toppled over. What do we do now? Now we get entangled. Entanglements are our past catching up to us, the war catching up to us, things not going well in a variety of ways. And what's cool is that the nature of entanglements match the suits of cards in terms of what questions you ask. So when an entanglement like that happens, you'll flip the top card of the deck, which in this case is an ace of spades. This is an entanglement about obligation. And because it's an ace, it's as heavy and high as it possibly could be. So it's something like maybe one of my family members died and I have to go to their funeral, or maybe we're kind of blowing off patrol and like there was an attack and somebody died and we have to go and answer for that, right? These are all very heavy things, but it's meant to be kind of a heavier game. So, bear with me on that. The fun thing though is our cards in our hand can also be used to mitigate entanglements. So let's say this is an ace of spades, right? I have some amount of cards in my hand, anywhere from 1 to 6. You have cards in your hand. Because we're drawing from one deck of cards, we're not going to be able to completely match this, which would completely mitigate the situation, right? It's just not possible. But if we work together, we can combine cards. Let's say I didn't play this ace of hearts earlier. I can play the ace of hearts. You can play the whatever of spades. And together we've made an ace of spades, right? And in that way, we're able to mitigate the entanglement in the biggest way possible. Something that is important that I kind of mentioned in the rules is that even when you mitigate the most effectively, there is never a trivialization of the entanglement, right? You're able to do the best that you can with the tools you have to combat whatever shitty situation may be going on. But it doesn't mean that that situation didn't happen, and it doesn't mean that it didn't have an effect, right? It still has an effect. It's just you as an individual are able to compartmentalize, get out of obligation, whatever it may be. That is a very important thing to me because I think the emotional weight of the game loses a lot of punch if you don't give that its sort of fair shrift. So that's the core loop of the game. We frame scenes, we play cards to ask questions, we open up or we don't. We stack dice depending on whether or not we open up or not. When the dice tower inevitably falls, we have an entanglement. How does the game end? Well, there's a very finite number of cards in this deck, and something I didn't mention is that every time we stack dice, every time we have an entanglement, meaning every time the dice tower falls over, we remove a certain number of cards from the deck. So for instance, if in that first scene we stacked 3 dice, 3 cards from the top of the deck, which is called the Fate deck, also get removed. They're removed face down. We don't know what's been removed. We don't know what's in the card pool. We don't know what's available, right? We never know how much time we have left. We never know what fate has in store for us, is kind of the loose idea. Similarly, like I mentioned, if 2 responders consecutively hold back and we have to stack that additional die, we're also removing additional cards. The more we hold back, the faster the game ends, the less time we have together, the faster we're losing trust, etc. You play until the deck runs out, or until you just decide that you're done, right? You can decide at the end of a scene, I think we got it. I think we're good. I'm a big believer in letting the narrative kind of guide you towards that rather than hard capping something. And similarly, if the deck runs out, I would urge you to try to find an end there, because part of, I think, the tension of the game is never having enough time together in this like shitty, distraught world. But on the other hand, the rules are just there as a guideline for fun. Break them, hack them, use them for whatever. The most important thing is that you have fun. And that's the game. That's Stealing Time. It's the first complete game that I've ever released. It's on my itch.io page now. I'll link to that below. Adeline Fowl Games is the name of the itch page. It's an anagram of my real name, which I thought was cute, and it sounds cute on its own, so deal with it. I also have another game up there, which I won't do like a full explanation of, but it's a hack of a game called For the Queen, where essentially you all take the role of kind of courtiers or people in a royal court to a queen, and draw cards that just ask you questions about the queen. So like, the queen once betrayed you. How did that make you feel? How did you respond? The queen once entrusted you with a deep secret. What was it? Did you keep it? Etc. My hack is a game called For the Ship and Its Crew, and is all about exactly that. A ship, meaning like a spaceship, and its crew, and it's very much like you had to sell something to keep the ship running. What was it? Did the crew make it up to you? You once had to sacrifice something for the good of the crew. Was it worth it? What was it? You had to sacrifice something for the good of the ship. What was it? Was it worth it? That kind of thing. There's a little bit more to it than that, but it's on a really cool platform called StorySynth, which again, I'll post in the description. Totally free. Both games are completely free to play. You can donate if you want to, which again will all help with Frank's medical stuff, and also just me to eat and live and whatnot. The crazy thing about being alive is that even when things go really bad for you and there's a lot of other costs, you still have to like live. I don't think it's fair. I think someone should talk to the developers of Life about that, maybe patch that out. Seems like a crazy oversight. But yeah, the core of this video is really just to kind of gush about the fact that I'm really enjoying game design. It's something that I'm having a ton of fun with. It's especially like very practical game design, which is to say I'm making games for situations that my group has. The reason I designed Stealing Time was to do one-on-one scenes in a campaign that I'm running, that had like a lot of weight. The reason I designed For the Ship and Its Crew is to start a new campaign, kind of like have some weight of a backstory embedded in this crew before the campaign's even started, because I feel like that's a big hurdle for a lot of people. And now I'm actually working on another game, which is a hack of Beak, Feather, and Bone, called Orbit, Surface, and Substrate, which is all about doing world building on like a planetary level. I'm not going to go into that yet. I'll make a video about it when it's done. Maybe a designer diary. I don't know. I'm just having fun creating, is the gosh darn truth of it. So yeah, just to recap, Stealing Time, For the Ship and Its Crew, both are available on my itch, which I'll link down below. Frank's eye sucks and needs to come out of his head. I'll post that GoFundMe in the description. Any amount that you can donate is so appreciated and really means the world. And if you can't donate, it's not a problem at all. Please don't feel bad or any type of way. I wouldn't ever dare be anything but grateful for your viewership and for, you even being here in the first place. So anyway, I think that's going to do it for me. I want to thank you so much for hanging out with me. Could have spent this time with anybody on the whole dang internet, and you chose to hang out with me, a guy under a very uncomfortable spotlight. I'm not even sure if the camera's in focus, and I'm holding a really tiny mic. I think that's awesome, and I want to thank you so much for it. I will be back I don't want to say next week because that's never true, but I will be back soon with another video. And as always, I appreciate you guys so much. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're taking care of yourselves and your loved ones. I'm trying to do the same. I'm Dan. Thanks for sitting at the table with me. And I love you more than games love being designed. I'll see you when I see you.